Greetings! Thanks to everyone for coming out to our group reading tonight. This reading is brought to you by Strong Women, Strange Worlds, which is a group of authors supporting authors. Our mission is to elevate the voices of women and non-binary authors of science fiction, fantasy, and horror through events like our bi-monthly virtual quick reads. You can find out more about Strong Women Strange Worlds in the handout we've provided in the chat and by visiting our website at strongwomenstrangeworlds.weebly.com, and I'll put that in the chat. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who have made a tip jar donation. We love you. We appreciate you so much. I'm your host today, Sarah Smith, and you can find out more about me in the provided handout. Please note that recording of this session by the audience isn't allowed, and recording of electronic communications in general, including Zoom meetings and webinars, without permissions is illegal. We are going to have videos of all of these readings, so you don't need to do it. Today we'll be featuring 6 authors: Renee Coloman, Tara Campbell, Larissa N. Davila, E.A. Noble, Jacquelyn Stolos, and Caroline Shea. Each author will have 8 minutes to read. Ready? Here we go. Our first reader is Renee Coloman. Renee Coloman is the award-winning author of Born of Dirt and Dust and Roxy's Not My Girl, 2 short story collections of genre-bending speculative fiction. Her work has appeared in literary publications in the U.S. and internationally, including The Literary Hatchet, Bright Flash Literary Review, and Hedge Apple Magazine. Renee is a happy mom to 2 pug mixes. Renee, take it away.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today and for this wonderful opportunity to read an excerpt from my book, Born of Dirt and Dust. The story I'm going to read is titled Flypaper and Pickle Jars. The last of the southern wind shimmied across the open fields, swirling and rustling leaves from the old oak tree. Crack! Another branch snapped and tumbled down, thudding against the unpaved road. A soft cloud of dirt whispered into the air, floated knee-high, then settled again, restful until Farrell walked its path, stirring another round of scattered dust ahead of the dying wind. Farrell retrieved the broken branch, held it up, and inspected it against the setting sun, 3 feet perhaps in length, a diameter about the size of a 50-cent piece. "This will do fine," he said. The husky man, bearded and thick-haired, didn't seem like a man in his late 50s. He got along without a hitch, without hesitation, as he hammered the branch, flat and horizontal, against the top side of the wooden chair he started to build earlier in the morning, when the wind had whipped stronger and cracked more limbs from the old resilient oak tree. "This will do," he said again, and he sat in the DIY chair. It held up fine, holding the man's weight, 210 pounds, give or take. But Farrell didn't construct the chair for himself. He built it for his wife, Evelyn. He called out to her, sweet and caring, the way he always did, the way his Southern family had taught him, generations of Buckley history carried on his back for years, passed from this ancestral house, this sweet potato farm, these 10 acres of flat land. "Evelyn," he called out, "wind's died down. Come sit in your new chair and enjoy the sunset with me." When Mrs. Buckley didn't answer, he understood his wife needed a helping hand. Evelyn didn't keep as fit as he did, often kept inside, away from the wind, the dirt, the dust. She had turned inside out, too fragile to handle the farm like he did. Farrell sighed, hard and brusque. He tried not to think that his wife didn't appreciate his efforts to keep her comfortable, But he's a man's man, and sometimes his fury blew hard when he didn't mean for it, in the end, to cause damage and pain. "I'm coming, Evelyn," he said, and he tightened his lips, rolling up the corners into a practiced smile. Inside the rebuilt farmhouse, Farrell took precaution. He felt pride that nothing much had changed over the last few decades. Low lighting, blanket-covered sofa, cabinetry hand-forged from the days when Farrell's great-grandparents landed here from the eastern side of the country. Land. The family wanted, needed their own private land. They've collected things, dead treasures to feed the earth that other folks may not appreciate. Farrell kept up with the family's intimate business. He's dedicated a few areas inside the house for these treasures. He walks alongside them, calling for Evelyn, doing his best to ignore the rotting flesh of sweet potatoes hibernating in most of the rooms. There were flies, too many of them, and Farrell blamed himself for keeping too many windows open. Unlike his parents and their parents during the time they harvested the sweet potato farm, flypaper hadn't been needed. But Farrell took an unusual liking to the stickiness and hung the contraptions near the open, uncurtained windows and above the loose piles of rotting sweet potatoes spilling from the chairs and beds in each of the 3 back rooms. The deeper Farrell walked into the house, the stronger the stench of putrid flesh. He covered his nose and mouth with his hand, removing it only to call out for his wife. "Which room are you in, Evelyn? These flies are buzzing thick back here. Seems I need to hang more sticky paper." Something stirred in the dankness of room number 3, what once was his childhood bedroom. In there, he hadn't bothered to open the window or spread wide the curtains. But he did hang at least 13 strips of flypaper. Good thing, too. A swarm of them insects followed him inside. He found Evelyn there, no longer sitting on the bed the way he left her earlier in the day. Her body had slid to the side, curled and prone-like, her fingers clawed, her toes worse. Could have been the hungry flies had knocked her over. Farrell dropped his hands from his mouth, hurried to his wife. He waved his arms, propeller-like, shooing the flies away as best he could. But they had already caused damage, feeding on Evelyn's open eyes, her open mouth, the festering bed sores crackling upon her skin, up and down her unclothed body. Farrell cursed the flies, and himself too. He thought the rotting sweet potatoes would have distracted the insects and given him more time with Evelyn to enjoy the sunset before he needed to dig deep in the soil and plant her, a treasure of nourishment for next season's batch of them starchy, sweet-tasting roots springing up into a nice fleshy purple. One limited time, he would have cracked Evelyn into fertilizing pieces, arms, legs, torso, head, same way he did with his parents, his older siblings, his grandmother and grandfather, lessons he learned from the special book his great-grandma carried west from Salem. But Farrell's no unappreciative brute. He saves the heart, keeps them in pickle jars around the house, adding to the collection great-grandma started after her 4th husband had turned inside out and died. Best of all, Farrell Stuckley's sweet potatoes won first place every year at the county fair, best tasting root in the entire state. Now that Evelyn's done and gone rotten, Farrell knew he had limited years before the soil beneath his old oak tree and across his 10 acres of land would dry up, ruining his sweet potato farm and leaving him with nothing but dirt and dust. He wasted no time. He cracked open Evelyn's ribs and bit a piece of her heart, enough to fit in a pickle jar. Okay, well, I just wanted to end this by saying alternative endings are really fun for me. And I'd like to invite everyone to type in the chat box an answer to this question. How should Farrell use Evelyn's dead body parts to sweeten the flavor of his sweet potatoes? So, for example, should he grind her bones into sugary seasoning? Maybe saute her limbs in honey before planting them in soil? Add your thoughts to the chat box, and for anyone who signs up to receive my author newsletters, I'll send you a PDF copy of this story with a bonus ending that includes your recommendations from today's chat. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That was such a pleasure for me.
And you seem like such a nice lady too, Renee. Thank you. Our second reader is Tara Campbell. Tara Campbell is a writer, teacher, and fiction co-editor at Barrel House. Her publication credits include Master's Review, Wigleaf, Electric Literature, Craft Literary, Uncharted Magazine, Daily Science Fiction, Strange Horizons, and Escape Pad Artemis Rising. She's the author of 2 novels, 2 hybrid collections, 2 short story collections, and a chapbook of sestinas. Tara, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being here. I am going to read 3 sestinas from my new chapbook, which you see the cover of there on the screen. And for those who may not be familiar with the sestina format, these are 7 stanza poems, and you'll hear 6 words being repeated in rotating rhythms throughout the poem. So if you hear certain words coming up again and again, that's why. The first sestina is called The Snarling Stars. Oh, sing of glimmering stars, of a heavy golden key and waves and beaches. Sing of ocean dazzle, the shimmer of mermaids, leviathan snarling and slick, flanks wide as sky. Sing in praise of sky, of wind and weather, jubilant stars and surf, of seaweed snarling swimmers' feet, of the golden key, its heavy shimmer strung around your neck. Sing of selkies and treasure chests. Sing of sailcloth snapping sky, the waves' green shimmer in blackest night, of shooting stars, St. Elmo's fire, the twins' key on your chest. The mermaids snarling their hellos, greedy men's fingers snarling in flowing hair until they sing, ah, drowning is such sweet sorrow, off key, sighing their goodbyes, blessing the sky, but cursing the stars that doomed them. The same shimmer that saved you, kept you far from the shimmer of lithe arms aching to drag you, snarling to the ocean floor. Sing in praise of stars and golden keys and treasured islands. Sing of the glimmering helpmeets in the sky that lead you to the one chest matching your key. Sing now of the riches your key opens. Savor the shimmer of gemstones green as forests, blue as sky. Open the sand-encrusted chest, hinges snarling at the invasion. Sing of diamonds sparkling like stars. But what did it cost to crack open the sky? What the price of your golden key? Only the stars and their saving shimmer. Now you're rich in darkness, unseen snarling mouths, and the madness they sing. The second I'll read is The Prophecy Unswaddled. Disregard, if it distresses you, the churn of bodies, slap of flesh on tile. Ignore the bend of knee, the twist of hip. Swaddle your senses in believer's fire. You are the vessel that will bear the vessel of the vessel that will churn out the vessel of our Lord. The fire that shimmies inside your flesh is merely the desire to swaddle up our future vessel and bend your arms around her. Around every bend, you'll imagine fresh threats to your vessel, causing you to pull her swaddle tighter. A danger in itself. Your mind will churn with each disaster that could befall her flesh, every drop her drowning, every spark the fire that could burn her alive. But fire is necessary. If that distresses you, try to bend your mind toward joy. Find it in the flesh that led you here, secure in your path as vessel. Surely you can find comfort in the churn of your fellows, the bodies that swaddle you whole. Won't you swaddle them with your limbs in turn? Return the fire that burns in them for you, the churn of hips, fingertips grazing the bend of your knee, slipping from thigh to vessel, gripping anointed flesh. Not everyone is blessed with holy flesh. Precious few have been chosen to swaddle the vessel of the future vessel's vessel of our Lord. Don't you want to feel the fire of fellowship inside you? Every bend of your body enveloped in this glorious churn? Where are you going, vessel? Who granted you your own flesh? How dare you reject the churn of prophecy, a Lord to swaddle? Who let you glimpse the fire of your soul, impossible to bend? And the last poem I'll read is the titular poem of the collection, All the Wayward Angels. All the wayward angels sing of falling stars and waiting seas, azure graveyards of high-flown dreams, the saline sting of failure, the briny, unforgiving sea shooting up their nostrils, the stain of failure for all to see. This sort of stain doesn't wash off an angel's tunic so easily. The bitch-slapping sea left its mark. Don't bother singing of stars. We all know what happened. The sting was enough to make those angels' azure eyes water for 1,000,000 years. But let them assure you, angel humor, they're not done yet. The stain of failure is their fuel, they say, just the sting in the ass they need. The fallen angels will tell you they're just like the stars that tumbled into the sea. But what would you learn from the sea if you could only comprehend its azure meanings? When it swallowed the stars, was it merely waiting for the stain of wayward angels that followed? Did the sea sting them, or was it stung? Meaning, did the angels sting the ocean when they broke through its skin? Only the sea can say how it felt. If only the angels would listen. The azure waves lap, licking at scars, at stains, nervously eyeing the dazzling stars, waiting for them to fall. The stars, however, don't fall lightly. They've heard of the sting of the sea. They've seen the stain on the tunics of wayward angels. The sea is nowhere the stars want to be. They'll leave the azure punishing waves to the angels. If falling is such a stain, why do people love the stars for it? Ask the angels. Their eyes will forever sting with the slap of the sea, their briny shame, their sodden tunics stained azure. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Our third reader is Larissa N. Davila. Daughter of first-generation Latina and Polish parents, Larissa N. Davila is a psychologist and professor. She lives in Wisconsin, where in addition to writing, she directs a clinic for children and conducts research to improve treatments. Her work has been highlighted in outlets such as NBC's Today and NPR. Larissa, it's yours.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here. I'm going to start a scene from chapter 1 in which Jared, a young soldier, is in the midst of preparation for a rite of passage that will determine whether he is able to find a place within his community, and whether he will be accepted despite the curse that makes others see him and all his kind as dangerous. Jared had prepared for this moment for 12 years. but he never expected the hawk to enthrall him. She soared above the valley, talons clutching the success of her hunt, as a noonday sun painted her body in gold, and he followed, although he feared it was wrong. His eyes tracked her as she wheeled in an effortless arch toward the cliffs. Below, the city shrank to a gray smudge against the foothills. The river, silver and quick with the spring thaw, divided the dark forest like a belt. With slow, powerful wing beats, the hawk hovered above a rocky crag, then settled on the narrow ledge. Her chicks chirped frantic greetings from the nest, stepping over one another to claim her. A breeze swirled off the mountain crevice and fluffed their cream-colored down as the hawk bent her head to meet each open mouth. When the sun leaned toward the death of the day, she left the nest once more, her wings extended, her long, strong primary feathers flirted with the mountain thermals, as if she could entice them to come to her before she glided lower into the valley. She was magnificent. Jared hadn't expected that either. From the crown of the hill, he watched the perfection of her flight and felt an answering excitement in his own body. Desire, dangerous and futile, twitched the twin scars down his back as he leaned into the buoyancy of the wind. Rihanna commands that a bird of prey be slain in the prime of spring. The temple's order dragged his thoughts back to the ground. Despite the warmth of the spring day, a shudder took him, passing from his shoulders, through his arms, to his hands, which already held the bow. He stared at the weapon, as though this were a decision he could make, then turned quickly to the bird again. He knew the invisible curve she traced against the cloud and shifted his arm until he reached the necessary angle between the horizon and the sky. His breathing slowed as he anchored himself. He sought the instant of absolute stillness in the pause between heartbeats. His finger extended. The bowstring thrummed. The shaft hurtled upward, tearing at the sky. It knocked the hawk from her flight, penetrated her feathers, and shattered her breast. She screamed, pumping her wings as if to propel herself above the pain. Then she crumpled and began tumbling toward the ground. Lower on the hill, Brandlin threw back his head and let out a whoop of victory. Jared stood silently, unable to look away from the plummeting bird, a dull ache starting behind his eyes. Her body somersaulted toward the river and the ancient aqueduct, then disappeared into the thicket along the bank. "You did it!" With a sunny laugh, Jared's foster brother scrambled down the rocky incline, heading toward the meadow in the riverbank. The boy glanced over his shoulder to Jared, who stood motionless, waiting to feel joy, excitement, relief, anything. So many years of waiting. "Come on," the boy cried. "You made the kill. Come help me find it." "Go ahead, Bran. I'm right behind you." The bird was down. He would be allowed to enter the becoming. Rihanna gave him this gift. The raptor must die in the prime of spring. Shaking his head to push away his questions before they could fully form, Jared marked in his mind the point at which the hawk had entered the forest, then swung his bow across his back and turned to follow. He followed Brandlin toward the sounds of the river. The ground dropped out from under him. As the ache behind his eyes exploded in blue sparks, Brandlin, the meadow, the forest, became pieces in a patchwork of countryside. He spied the arrow a helpless moment before it pierced his chest, felt it ripping through muzzle and lodging against bone. Agony loosed an animal scream in his head. Gray cliffs, blue sky, and the green trees streamed into one long tail of color as he spiraled toward oblivion. "Jared?" A distant voice reached him through layers of fog. Jared tried to answer but couldn't utter a sound. He couldn't catch his breath for the pain in his chest. Heartbeats echoed faintly in his ears. "Jared!" Someone tugged at his body. He let the warmth of that rare contact pull him through a fog-shrouded path until he could open his eyes. Brandlin knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. The boy's startled blue gaze darted over his face as if trying to determine whether this could possibly be a big brother's joke. What in Kale's darkness? We were falling. Jared struggled for breath. No shaft pierced his heart, yet emptiness grew within him as though something vital had ruptured. Nothing had so overwhelmed him since his mother's death. His teacher snapped a warning in his mind. Weak-willed child, you must maintain control. I was halfway to the river when I heard you yell. Brandlin's hand tightened on Jared's shoulder. I've never heard such a sound. I thought you were dying. Jared took another breath and tried to summon an image of tranquility from the exercises General Nydam had taught him. He sought an explanation he could give the boy. He wished he had one for himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Our fourth reader is E.A. Noble. E.A. Noble is a queer, neurodivergent, disabled author and poet. She serves as an acquiring editor for Fire Literary Magazine, LitMag, and Rawhead Journal. She also serves as chair for WizCon, a feminist, inclusive science fiction and fantasy convention. Noble's work centers womanhood, power, and resistance within speculative fiction. EA, it's yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for all coming, and thank you for inviting me to be here. Just to give a little background, there are 7 elemental kingdoms in my world, one being the Earth Kingdom and another being the Reaper Kingdom. And I'm reading a section between the Earth Princess, which is my main character, Bellamy, and the Reaper Queen, Death herself. The Queen and I strolled the length of the temple grounds before crossing to the opposite street to take a break at the park. We sat on a bench in front of a beautiful lake. The sun's rays peeked over the steel towers, highlighting the lush green grass. Children's jovial screams rang in the distance. Pedestrians moseyed by, ecstatic to get glimpses at the Queen. I like you, Bellamy. I believe with the right guidance, you will make an excellent queen, she said, crossing her legs. Do you think my doyens aren't suitable teachers? I'm sure your mother's parents have good intentions, but it doesn't take a blind man to see that you are not an earthborn. That's why you question my loyalty? A mother duck quacked at her babies waddling behind her. As the ducks settled into the lake, her babies followed suit, all except one. It stayed back on the edge of the land, quacking at its family swimming away. Loyalty, Princess Bellamy, is a fickle thing. Easy to come by, hard to keep. From one queen to another in waiting, question everything and everyone. That seems exhausting. Always having to watch over your shoulders. Who do you trust? The Queen inhaled, then slowly released her breath. I trust people to be exactly who they are. And how do you know who a person truly is? By watching what they do, my child. I hummed and nodded in understanding. My sister says I'm gullible and don't understand the way of the noble courts. She says without her help, it would be like a sheep walking into a wolf's den. Do you think she's right? I thought for a moment. The baby duck that was left behind sat at the shore, quacking to its family that were further into the lake. I think I'm different, sure, but I also think, fuck the courts. I cringed, almost slapping myself across the forehead. A slip of the tongue, how can I be so reckless? The queen let out a laugh. I had to do a double take to make sure I was hearing correctly. Reaper through and through, she said. Can I tell you a secret? She leaned in. I couldn't help but close the gap between us. I agree. Fuck the courts, she giggled. I eyed her wearily. Her smile crinkled the skin of her porcelain doll visage. Then her face went completely cold. The switch was so sudden that goosebumps formed on the surface of my skin. I tried to move my legs, but I couldn't. It was as if concrete weighed them down. My heart thudded against my chest and sweat prickled at my forehead. I tried to speak, but my mouth clamped shut. My head twisted forward without my permission, looking out at the lake. The baby duck called out to his family, but they had drifted farther away. At the corner of my eye, a black figure with long wings swooped down and snatched up the lone baby duck from the edge. My heart dropped as the small duck cried out one last time, then went silent. Take this as a lesson, Princess Bellamy. The moment you let your guard down is the moment you allow someone else to take complete control. My body grew tighter, as if it were crumbling onto itself. In my head, I was screaming to be released. The queen continued, those in power must remain in power. We have spent centuries putting systems in place to maintain said power. It is not only for our protection, but also for the protection of all those who come after us. There will always be those with no power. This is how the system works. Everyone must know their place. My back cracked as my body involuntarily slumped forward. The queen scooted closer, placing her hand around my neck. To them, she breathed before continuing. The queen and the princess are sitting here enjoying a beautiful day at the lake. Reception is a part of upholding power over their minds. The queen gently stroked my hair. I strained to break free of her grasp, but I couldn't move. I wanted to call my father, my mother, my family, but I knew they were far away. My body prickled as if someone was pinching my entire skin. Anybody, please help me. The queen spoke softly into my ear. Her breath smelled of fresh cut onions. You, my dear, were born in a place of power, and with unimaginable privilege comes responsibility and duty. When you disregard the courts, you disregard everything we fight so hard to protect. She patted my thigh. In another life, I would have been proud to call you my daughter. That being said, I will let you go with a warning. Never, she hissed through her teeth, her grip tightening around my lungs, snatching the oxygen away. Disrespect our kingdom again. Reaper above all else. She smoothed my hair back into its pin. Now, be a good little girl and straighten your face. She smiled, her eyes blank and pupils round. My body released from its torment. My lungs expanded as air returned. Blood rushed through my veins, causing me to become lightheaded. I wanted to shout. I wanted to make a scene and rush home, but I was too scared to move. Weak, pathetic, ungifted, a disappointment to my bloodline. Words that haunted me at night, robbed me of my sleep, echoed in my mind once more. I was living my worst nightmare at this very moment. The queen showed me who I was. And
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Thank you, EA. Our fifth reader is Jacquelyn Stolos. Jacquelyn Stolos is the author of the novels Edendale for adults and Astrowood for children. Her stories and book reviews have been published in magazines like Joyland, No Tokens, Necessary Fiction, and more. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband, daughter, and sweet little cat. Maybe we'll see the cat later. Go, Jacquelyn.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And bravo, EA. That was so gripping. I almost forgot my turn was next. I did forget my turn was next. That's why my video wasn't on. So thank you so much, EA. You really captivated me. I'm going to read you all the prologue of Astrowood. So technically, you don't need to know anything. It's the prologue, but I'm going to tell you some stuff anyways. I like to say that Astrowood is like one battle after another, but from the child's point of view, with some fairies and some cannibals and some sentient trees. And the prologue takes place 10 years before the main action of the novel, and it's the key to the family mystery that Madeline, the protagonist, will spend the rest of the novel unraveling. So here is that prologue. In an old, gnarled forest, in a hut made of sticks, mud, and dried grass, a baby wailed. Outside, trees loomed dark and creaking. Animals burrowed under brush as thunder clouds slipped in front of the full moon. Lightning forked in the sky. The baby's mother and father argued, voices hushed and angry. For her, said the father, we have no other choice. No, said the mother. She took the baby, bundled in blankets, from the father and turned her back to him. Never. What's wrong with you after all the work we've done here? The moon peeked out from behind the clouds for just a moment, casting pale light through the hut. The father, tall, lanky, and freckled, paced across the dirt floor with the frenzied energy of a great scientist on the verge of a breakthrough, worrying his hands through his untamable red hair. The mother stood in the center of the hut, slowly rocking the baby back and forth. In the moonlight, her charcoal hair shone and her pale skin glowed. Though petite and a head and a half shorter than the father, she radiated power as she swayed, humming to her baby. The baby's cries quieted. No matter how hard we work, things are degrading quickly, whispered the father. We can't make a life for ourselves here. I can't take care of you two. I don't need to be taken care of, snapped the mother. This is our home. She has no future here. No one does. Coward, said the mother. Traitor. We must. I don't recognize you, said the mother. She turned her face into shadow. The father put his hand on her shoulder. The mother jerked away. The movement woke the baby, who began to wail all over again. At this, the mother's composure broke. Her bottom lip quivered. She closed her startlingly green eyes. I'm so tired, said the mother. The father wrapped both his arms around her. This time she did not jerk away. Instead, the family rocked back and forth together. They did not speak. They rocked and rocked and rocked. When the baby finally fell asleep, the parents lowered themselves to the dirt floor, where they lay forehead to forehead, the sleeping child between them. I won't leave, whispered the mother. I can fix everything here, you'll see. The father did not respond. Instead, he wiped her tears with the side of his hand. Outside, the storm opened up, and heavy raindrops began to pound the lush canopy. An owl shrieked. The mother woke to sunlight on her face. She had not slept so deeply since the baby was born. Birds chirped in the trees outside the hut, and the nearby brook bubbled and rushed just beyond the open window. The mother stretched, her left side aching from a night on the hard dirt floor. In the morning light, the jars that crowded the hut's walls shelves gleamed. The mother scanned the shelves, lazily noting the pale, fibrous roots that floated in each jar. Some of these roots had sprouted dozens of hair-like shoots. Others rotted in vibrant blacks, purples, oranges, and greens, and some, if you looked very carefully, emitted a dull violet glow. On the east wall of the hut were the door and the window, both left slightly ajar. Below the window, the cradle stood empty in a beam of dust-infested light. Empty. The mother's heart leapt to her throat. Gasping, she scrambled to her feet and pushed the door wide open. Perhaps they'd just gone for a walk, she told herself. She called for them, but even as she called, she knew. Had taken her. Away. Where? The darkness began to gather in the depths of the mother's heart. She called for her family again and again, circling the hut in a frenzy and then dashing into the shaded forest, trampling the precious daisies, poppies, lady slippers, purple zinfandels, and bright-faced lemalogs that grew in the small patches of sunlight. As she ran past birches, aspens, tiptrees, and firs, as she startled a fawn and its mother from their boysenberry thicket, she pleaded with the woods to return them to her. The darkness rose up out of her heart, billowing into her throat. The mother fell to her knees in a spongy patch of moss. Besides the fluttering of butterflies and bees, the old, gnarled forest was still. And that's all I'll read today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacquelyn. Our final reader is Caroline Shea. Caroline Shea is the author of Lamb Flesh. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Code Signal magazine, The Deadlands, Lady Churchill's Rosebud Wristlet, and Luna Station Quarterly, among other publications. Caroline, go for it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. I'll be reading from a short story, The Long Way Home, and you'll be able to read it in this spring's issue of Lady Churchill's Rosebud Wristlet, which you can find on their website. She missed her hands the most. The weight of them at the ends of her wrists, gripping, grasping, stroking, clawing. One hand trailing over the edge of the dented pedal boat, the lake a cool ripple beneath her sweaty palm. She'd always wished, secretly, guiltily, for the water to close over wrist, then elbow, then shoulder, neck, head, pulling her under, swallowing her up. The lake was the first and best thing she'd ever loved. She couldn't love something without wanting to become it, or be consumed by it. It wasn't her fault, Morgan said once. It was fate, a genetic flaw. Which one? Care had asked. Morgan's smile turned bitter. What's the difference? It was the oldest story in the world, after all. Care wanted to be something else, something other. Then she was, and she wanted her beginning back again, unchanged. She waded out of the lake, naked and shivering. She got her old body back twice a year. Each time it was harder to hold. Her first thought was always of her body's strangeness, its fragility, all that exposed flesh, no beak or claws to ward off danger, no wings to flee on. This far from town, this late at night, the only sounds were the hum of the cicadas and the lap of the lake against Morgan's rusty dock. The moon hung heavy in the sky, silvering the night strange around her. The trees dripped gilded leaves, and the lake became a nickel caught mid-flip. For a moment, the familiar stretch of shore looked utterly foreign. Then a cloud scudded over the moon, and the spell was broken. The trees were only trees again, the lake just a lake. Care shook herself and moved forward, walking stiffly toward the cabin in the distance. When she reached the sagging porch, Morgan flung the screen door open before she could fumble with it and handed her a towel. "Don't drip on the floor," she said. Care followed her silently inside, scrubbing at her too smooth skin. Clothes were laid out for her in the hall bathroom. A worn pair of jeans with the cuffs rolled up and a too big Traverse High School class of 2012 t-shirt. She pulled them on quickly, her wet hair soaking through the back of the shirt. She found Morgan in the kitchen, filling the kettle. She stared out the little half-moon window over the kitchen sink while the water boiled. She didn't speak again until she set a mug of tea down in front of Care with a thud, the liquid sloshing over the sides. "All right?" she asked. "Sure," Care said, dredging her voice up from somewhere deep. It wasn't a lie, not really. She was fine, or she would be once she returned to the lake. It was these long-limbed nights that hurt now, her body no longer hers. Funny that she at first thought these nights were a reprieve, a kindness, rather than what gave the curse its claws. Morgan watched her warily. I don't blame you, Care could have told her. She knew it wasn't Morgan's fault, but she was glad for Morgan's guilt nonetheless, even if it was unearned. How is he? Care asked, before she could stop herself. She'd managed to avoid asking until now. Fine, Morgan said, then added after a minute, you know he's better off if you leave him be. Care made a vague noise of agreement. She hadn't argued when Morgan told her to stay away before. She'd still been in shock the first time she returned, her mind muddied and numbed by months without words. Even now her thoughts were shaped strangely, flashes of instinct and image, so different from the way humans thought. But Lachlan had never needed words from her. He claimed he'd understood her even as a baby, before her language had grown in, bloody and aching, like teeth. Lachlan was a liar. But his lies always held a kernel of truth buried within them. Do you want company? Morgan asked. She wouldn't meet Care's eyes. Her gaze was fixed on the peeling floral wallpaper. Morgan had always been better with solid things, things she could fix. She couldn't stomach uselessness, especially her own. No thanks, Care told her, pretending not to notice the way Morgan's shoulders slumped. She turned toward the stairs, looking back once from the doorway. You're a good girl, Care, she said. You know that, right? Sure, Care said again. She sat at the table for several minutes after Morgan left, listening to the sounds of the lake through the cracked window. The muscles in her arms and back twitched and spasmed. Even awake, her body dreamed its missing wings. No matter which form she wore now, it felt like the wrong one. Sometimes she thought that if she could just stay in her other body, her swan body. But no. She wouldn't give up these nights, no matter how painful. Care roused herself and walked down the narrow hall toward the rear of the house and her room. It hadn't changed at all. The rough white walls were almost entirely papered over with posters, postcards, and maps. A twin bed wedged where the ceiling slanted toward the far wall, a sprawling world map taped above it. Lying in bed, it was all you could see, the world spread out above you like the sky. The map was pocked with pushpins and post-it notes, a messy, narrow script scrawled on the notes and in the margins alike, marking out future routes. A neater script joined the first, with added plans or commentary, noting in block letters over the Atlantic, "Here there be dragons." Care flung herself down on the bed and rummaged in the nightstand without looking. She pulled out a battered bubblegum pink flip phone. Somehow, it still held a charge. She clicked through to the contacts and dialed the first one. Lachlan picked up on the second ring. Who is this? He asked, voice cold. Care could hear the thud of shitty bass in the background and the shrill voice of someone trying to get his attention. It's me, fuckface, she said cheerfully. There was a beat of silence. Care? Where have you been? He sounded so much like Morgan when he was angry. Care dug her nails into her palm. Oh, you know, she said. To the end of the world and back again. Lachlan made an exasperated noise. She smiled. I'm at home. Come pick me up? I'll be there in 10. He hung up before she could thank him. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And thank you so much to everyone who came today.